What are your thoughts on this pillar of financial empowerment? Like, and why did we choose this as one of the core pillars?
I think we chose it because finances at its core is energy, right? And I feel like so many people are in a situation where they don't have the tool of money to get out of a situationship or a situation, rather that's like an abusive situation in a bad in like home environment. Maybe there's toxins and they can't, they don't have other resources. I just feel like money is a tool to create a beautiful life. I think at like my core belief is that we're here to enjoy and create and expand, and I feel like money is the tool to do that. But so many people, I mean, we're just not taught financial literacy. Like if you're born into a wealthy family, you're most likely going to continue on your life being wealthy because you're taught the tools, the habits, even like the belief system, the structure, the worthiness, the relationship to money. I feel like that's passed down, but most, like the average person, is not taught that because their parents weren't taught that, their grandparents weren't taught that. So I just feel like it's such a core pillar because it can be used for good, right? So I think that's our goal, is just to help people, I guess, rewire their beliefs and relationship to money so that it can be used as a tool to better their life.
Yeah, agreed. I also think money is very much a one of the best kind of like gateways into inner healing, if I'm being honest. Because if I look back, money in the past has actually been one of the most triggering topics, which is something that I just kind of skirted around because it brought up so many feelings of inadequacy, right? And just not only not understanding when I was younger the fundamentals of financial literacy, but also my relationship with money was very much one of fear. Like when
Yeah.
I thought of money, I kind of just felt fear, in this sense that I didn't have as much control as I was convincing myself I did, and I think money is really interesting because it can be really, really charged depending on your environment and what you grow up, how you view money, belief systems, mindset. And I remember there was a big turning point for me when I started to look at money in terms of a relationship. So I had these like ebbs and flows and with money. And when I started to really look at it, instead of focusing on the outcome of money and the actual, dollar, I started to ask myself the question, what is my relationship with money? So if money were my girlfriend and I was dating her, what is my relationship like with her? And would that be a healthy relationship? And that's when I started to realize I was very avoidant. Right? Like if we look into attachment styles, very much an avoidant attachment. And so I had this avoidant relationship with money. And so it's like how much was I actually showing up into that relationship, and not to like get too deep into it, but I think once I started viewing money from the lens of a relationship rather than something I have to like get or like acquire or make, or generate money,
Right.
more so how am I showing up in the relationship? I think that's when my perspective on financial empowerment really started to shift. And that's when I started to realize, like, well, if I am avoidant, why? What is the thing inside me that I'm not fully sitting with and looking at that's making me avoid this relationship? What's the fear, the emotion that's coming up anytime I see money that I don't want to feel? Because that's really what it came down to, certain feelings. And for me, that was a feeling of this belief and story around inadequacy of watching certain people in my life really struggle with finances. And so then it started to really scare me in terms of like, well, finances are inconsistent, like it's this kind of game you're playing with something that's very unpredictable, which created this fear in me, which created this story and so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
bring it around. That's why I think this pillar's so awesome because money, I'm realizing more and more, is actually such a great gateway into doing inner work and healing, which I thought would have been the opposite.
Mm. Yeah, and I think also, like, when you're not in the fight or flight mode of, like, having to pay your bills or worrying about the next thing, it's like you can relax and more so, like, either give to others in, like, service or give to yourself in terms of, like, health and wellness and, like, exploring different alternatives. Like, you just again, it's just a tool to, I guess, expand your life and become, like, a healthier, more optimal person. Like, I think if you have money, if you have abundance, it's a lot easier to dive into that rather than being on the fight or flight mode of just, like, being in that hustle and the stress all the time.
Yeah. What was
Yeah.
your Max, what was your relationship like growing up with money? I'm curious. Like, how did that
Um,
was that something you guys discussed openly as a family? Like, what was your relationship growing up with it?
no, it's always been that one thing that my family tried to achieve kind of. It's one of those like it's funny when we start talking about money, I think of this Forrest Gump movie. There's a scene where like Lieutenant Dan like invested in Apple or something through a company, the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company, and he's like he sends him a check and he's like, "Hey, we don't have to worry about money anymore." And he's like, "Oh, that's good. One less thing." And I'm like, that's so great because it's like it really is. If you had money, it is literally like one of the biggest things you don't have to worry about anymore, and you can kind of continue on living your life to what you should be doing, like the more meaningful way, I think. Um, but we were always kind of struggling for money, not struggling, but like, we wouldn't be able to get the things that we wanted um, unless it was like a special birthday or something like that. And even then, you know, like I wanted a guitar for my 16th birthday that was like $300, and my parents were like, no, not a chance, not a chance. And then I was just like really adamant about it. And then they actually got it. And then like they were excited and I was excited. And then like I kind of felt bad, because it was like I really kind of pushed them to get this thing that we couldn't really afford, but they did it anyways to make me happy. But um, yeah, it's just one of those. It is one of those pillars that if it was just set and you were solid financially, um, you could carry on just like living a more meaningful life. I feel like. But it's like, how do you get there? And I never like being in school, like high school, middle school, all those. We had like a finance class, but it was just like this is just numbers and annoying. And I didn't learn anything from it. I never took anything from it. My parents were always like trying to teach you the value of the dollar, and I was frugal, um, and I just usually lived my life like to be able to have just enough to be able to do the next thing that I wanted. Um, but as you get older and start realizing like, oh no, I need a lot of money to like buy a house and have a family and try to support all of them. And that was a big stressor in my life just to like buckle down and try to get a good paying job. And even a good paying job like is still living paycheck to paycheck, I feel like. And it is one of the bigger stressors in my life. that I still can't seem to get over that hurdle. So it would be nice to, just eliminate that stress in my life somehow. But
Thanks for sharing, Max.
yeah.
I
It
mean,
is interesting thought to think if people didn't have to worry about money, what would people focus on?
Yeah. I mean,
well, and how many people can here's what's interesting though is how many people can answer that question.
Yeah, like what
Like
if they didn't have to worry about money?
well, and I think that's one of the things that, as we step into sort of this new paradigm is it's like if you actually weren't in survival mode, do you even know what you would do with that time and with that freedom? And I think we're so habituated actually to working for a system and working according to a script, and all of our time is actually really put into survival, that if we actually got rid of that, what would you do? And I actually think that's a hard question for a lot of people to answer because most people haven't actually had that freedom to be able to just go inwards and be like, wow, well, if money wasn't an issue, if time wasn't an issue, what would I really do with my life? What's the one thing I would do? And I've been meditating on that question a lot. And one of the things I've been thinking about too is even even without the money being solved, can I still reach that state internally as if it already were? Meaning like I started to realize how much money for me became a security blanket, right? So like if I had money, then there was a sense of safety, right? And I felt good. And then it's like, oh, now I can breathe. Now I can like start to do things. But then if that money dips, the safety's gone. And then I'm in panic again. I'm back in survival mode. So my whole entire emotional state is dependent upon this thing externally that you could argue you don't actually have control over. You do, but at any point, like anything could happen, right? So if my safety is so dependent upon this external source, then who's really in control here? And that's when I started to realize like money controls me 100%. Like money ran my life. Like every choice I made was around basically looking at, well, do I have the funds to sustain that? And it's almost like money became my handler in a way. And that kind of told me what I could do. It's like, well, I want to do this, but yeah, I don't have the money, so I got to do this, and then I got to focus on this. And money started to really like run my life. And once I looked at that, I was like, well, is there a way to be fully detached from that? And no matter what the numbers say, no matter how much that ebbs and flow, can my internal state remain consistent? Right? Like almost certain. And can I remain feeling like I'm actually abundant no matter what the outside circumstance is telling me? Which I
Mhm.
think is difficult, but I actually kind of think that's the work, right? Is how do I feel abundant internally, and then eventually the external will match that without needing to rely upon that as validation.
Yeah, I think it comes back to the relationship aspect because, like you were saying, if you're always looking at the money to control your emotions, then it's almost like you're gonna create that reality to like, you don't feel safe with money, so you're gonna create that imbalance and that whiplash of, like, you have money, you don't have money, like, you're gonna create that in your subconscious. So I
Mhm.
that's where it does come back to doing the inner work of the relationship with money, your beliefs, your worth around money, and it's like, literally, no matter what you make, no matter where you're at in your life, like, you gotta switch it from the internal, and then, like you're saying, the external will follow eventually. It takes time,
Yeah.
but I think it is doing that inner work. Because even if you don't do the inner work and you make millions of dollars, it's like whatever situation you're in now or whoever you are now, money just expands that. So it's not like money's not gonna solve all your issues. If you're bad with money right now, you're gonna be bad with money when you're a millionaire, billionaire. So it's like, do the things with what you have now to create that. And then once the money does come, you know how to work with it. You know how to feel safe with it. You know how to like keep it flowing. Like money wants to flow. The whole system, I mean, like you were pointing out earlier, like the whole system is set up to keep it in banks, right? Like we want to bank it up. A bank literally like dams the water up. And so then they can use like they own the house, right? So they're earning interest, they're doing all this stuff while the average person is living in fear. Like, oh, we got to save our money. We got to save our money when there's actually no money in the system. Like
Yeah.
nothing's real. So I think it does just, I mean, I think a huge part of it is learning about money, how money works, how like the system works so you can create your own system. But then I think the belief structure and the worth structure and the relationship around money is like the core.
And the emotional relationship with money, because like if money is energy, which it is, and if money likes to flow, then what we're seeing is energy likes to flow. And
Yes.
energy is emotions. Emotions are energy in motion. So that means emotions like to flow. So it's like, where am I banking my emotions? Where am
Yes.
I damming my emotions? Where am I sort of holding and constricting when I see like that money trigger, right? Maybe it's like the stress. Maybe I tense up. Maybe I go into this state of survival. Whereas what it's really asking me to do is, can I just let that like flow? Like
Mhm.
whatever it is, the insecurity, the fear, the anxiety, can I just like feel it and let it flow through me without then banking it and attaching a story to, oh, I have let's say $6 in my account, so I'm worthless,
Mhm.
right? The stories that we create from the external validation that we see. And once I started to recognize that, I was in um, an awesome financial workshop like 3 months ago. And the very first thing he said when everyone got on the call was, he said, if you think that your freedom is dictated by finances, you're already unfree.
Mhm.
Like if you think your freedom comes from money, you'll always be unfree.
Yeah.
Because he's like, freedom isn't dependent upon finances. Finances is actually dependent upon your inner freedom that you already feel. And what's interesting is that everything we crave, we don't actually crave the thing, we crave the emotion that that thing gives us. So it's not actually money that we want, it's security,
Mhm.
it's safety. It's not actually like a partner or a significant other that we want, it's connection, it's love. Right, so we really crave these emotional states that we think having that thing will give us. Well, if that's true, then that state that renders, I can just feel that regardless of having that. So if what I really want is security and safety with money and freedom, can't I just actually feel those states within me, whether or not I have the money? Can't I just feel free? Can't I just feel secure? And then the question becomes, well, what's in the way of feeling that? And then I think that's where the work really starts to be done, because you realize, oh, I actually don't need any sort of money to truly feel free. Now, does money give you access? Like of course. But I think what we're really wanting is that internal state of freedom, which money doesn't directly give you. It gives you that initial hit. But if, like you said, you acquire all this money, but then inside you still feel trapped by your own beliefs and stories of inadequacy,
Mhm.
like you're not really free. Yet you can have all the
Yeah.
money in the world.
And the average person, like, if they move up in their job promotion, they get more money, it's like their lifestyle follows, right? So,
Sure.
like, there's so many stories of people you hear where it's like they still have the same amount of money even though they've, like, 10x their income. So,
Mhm.
I do think it just comes back to your habits, to your core beliefs, to yeah, the financial literacy behind how money works and how to create that freedom. But it's interesting you say, um, all the things about the emotions, because if someone doesn't even know, like, what the freedom feels like, or like it sounds so simple, and I feel like it is so simple to be like, you don't need this or that to have the emotion that you're craving. But I guess from the perspective of like someone's been in fight or flight their whole life, or like they were raised in poverty, or you know what I mean? Like, I guess how would someone begin this? Like, how would they? Because like when we're talking, it's like, yeah, you just feel it, you create it, you hold on to that frequency, and then
Yeah,
eventually it manifests. But
sure.
yeah,
Well,
like
and I think this is no, it's a good point, and I think it's a good thing to, like, throw out, like, this sense of compassion for those, and when I say those, I mean actually the majority of the world who's in
yeah,
survival mode. Like,
I would
we're talking when we're talking about financial empowerment, I think it's very important to have a big dose of compassion towards the majority of the world. Even just in America, 52% of America currently is living paycheck to paycheck.
I would think
50
more.
52%, right? And that's not taking into account debt and loans and liens and all this with inflation, like, and that's America, a first world country, you know? So when you go into other countries, like when I spent my time in India, the average amount they're making per day is about $2 to $3 is what they're making a day. So I do think most of the world is in survival mode. And a lot of this is where I think money has been hijacked to actually keep people in survival mode, because it ought to be our natural birthright to have basic needs covered, right? Like if we look at like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the bottom level is physiological needs: food,
Mhm.
shelter, and like warmth. Those should be like a human birthright, clean water. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, it's not.
yeah,
And that's where we can continue to look at the system all day and try to fix the system, but it is systemically broken. And that's why ultimately the answer is always going to be an internal shift. You know, like we don't have an economic crisis. I think we have a consciousness crisis, because we'll never be able to fully fix the system. The system will have to crumble and something new will have to come in its place, but that something new can't come about till individuals actually shift their consciousness towards our own worth. And I think that's what it comes down to is, if I'm stuck in survival mode, yes, there are certain things that I'm needing to provide for and get myself going every single day, especially if I'm trying to provide just for basic things like food and water. But in that state, can I look at that as like my greatest lesson and something I chose to be able to come more awake to myself? And that sounds super, I think, kind of ephemeral, but I think everything that everybody's going through, if they're in survival mode, is the best thing they could be going through in that moment to recognize who they are, right? Because like all I have is what's in front of me. So I think for those in survival mode, I think number one, it's firstly being able to like acknowledge that and recognize it and feel it for what it is, and kind of feel the sense of what that feels like to live in that sort of life, and then begin to look at, you know, what are the steps I need to do to really move forward? But even deeper than that, what are the stories I'm telling myself about kind of where I'm at?
mhm,
And that's why I think this work is can go so deep, because I do think we're shedding survival mode. Like that's like the transition is we're going from survival mode to a species that realizes that we are inherently worth it. Like we're inherently divine, and we've been convinced that we must earn our worth.
yeah,
That's like the deepest pull to all of this, is that so long as I think that I have to earn my worth through
yes,
production, I'm always going to be in this loop.
yep,
Whether I'm in survival mode or making millions, I'm always going to be in this loop of I have to buy my worth.
yeah, and I think that is the key right there. Like, that's the switch, because we were talking about this yesterday. Like, I don't believe that we should have to work to survive. Like, I don't have that belief, and I do think that's what we're moving into, especially with all the technology coming into place, AI. Like, I think if we do make the shift and shift, like, your internal beliefs and your mindset and your habits, like, right now, I think in the next 5 years, it's the greatest wealth transfer in history. Like, I think the middle class is gonna be completely wiped out. It's either gonna be poor, poor, or, like, wealthy, wealthy, because there's gonna be, like, no in between, I think. So, I feel like right now is the greatest opportunity to, I don't know, go inward and be like, what, like, you gotta choose it, right? You gotta choose yourself. You have to know you're worth it. You have to believe that there's a better way to do things. Because from my point of view, like, it's not working. People are in survival mode. It's like, why would you come to Earth to, like, work and grind and live in fear and worry, worry, worry? Like, that makes no sense to me when, like, we literally came to Earth, we have these physical bodies, the emotional states. It's like, why not create, like, the most optimal, happy, like, environment and opportunity? And I think it is easier said than done, and but I do think there's a way. Like, there's just so
There's
much
definitely a way. I mean,
resources and technologies coming
yeah.
out. Like, there is a system that can serve everyone for sure.
Well, and I think an important point to this is I don't think this can be done without community.
Yeah,
Because, like, I'm thinking specifically right now of a single mom with 3 kids working 3 jobs.
right.
It's
Yeah,
like, well, it's internal work. Like, I know you're in survival mode, but, like, you gotta do the internal work. And it's like, what like a terrible response to that, because the reality is she truly is in survival. And if she doesn't continue forward grinding, basically eroding her nervous system out of the need to provide for her children and herself, like, then what? And
yeah.
let's say she has no close family, no support. Like, I don't think this can be done without community, right?
Mhm.
So there is that piece where there very much are people in a situation where they hear this combo and it's kind of just like, for real,
Yeah,
and that's where I think for the people that are in the position to do the inner work to, like, move through these deep blocks of unworthiness, I think that affects everyone. We're all connected. So the more I face my shadow, the easier it makes it for others around me to do the same, right? Because, like, I add to sort of that collective, we're all on the same team. So I think for those that are in a position to be able to shift this mindset and start a new way of living, I think it's for them to begin that. And then as we do that systemically, we can start to form communities and connections to where it's like maybe this woman who's a single mother can then be supported by the community, right? She can then let go of one of those jobs or do something else because there's support that's coming in, and she has the support of a village. And I think that's what's so nefarious about our current system in the West is it's hyper individualized. Hyper independence is glamorized, and it's like, oh my gosh, you're moving out at 18 and you're getting your own place. Good for you. Whereas, like, when I spent time in India, I'll never forget, I spent weeks in this village. No one had any money. Like, you didn't see it. No one had jobs. And I remember it blowing my mind to be like, how are you guys surviving? And it was purely through community. It was sort of this gift economy where everyone supported everyone. Everyone had a certain trade, and they found a way to make this work because they had that community that supported it. So I think there's really 2 pillars here, which is number 1, doing our own inner work individually to move through our own blocks around not just money, like abundance and support. Do I believe I'm supported? And then number 2, the pillar of community, of once we do that individual work, coming together to support those who are in the same position to be able to do that. And I think
Yeah.
that's a big glass of water to drink, but I think that's sort of like what we're working towards, right? To be
Yeah.
able to bring in a new way of living that we know is possible. It's
Yeah.
just it's a big jump from where we currently are.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, like you said, we have to bring it back to the community because I just think with where things are headed, that's like it's gonna come back down to I mean, you're either gonna live in like a 15-minute city or like be on the outskirts in a village. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's gonna come down to self-sustainment through community. Like it's and not even like where things are headed, where they currently are. Like it's not it's not sustainable how they currently are. And even put aside money, let's take food for example. I cannot trust to buy food from the system. I go to the grocery store and even organic food now is being sprayed with pesticides.
Right, right.
So it's like, and what's interesting is during, I think it was like World War II, they had these things called victory gardens, and everything was so wiped out from the war that people who had grown their own food, they were known as victory gardens, and they
Mhm.
started giving their food to people, and that's how they made it through, basically the downfall after the war is from these people who had gardens to be able to subsist, the communities. And I think it's going to go back to that, not just from a standpoint of financials. As things get more expensive, a loaf of bread becomes $10 and an average family can't afford that, but also in terms of health. If I
Mhm.
think it will get to a point to where even if you have the money, you can't trust the system
Yeah,
because it's a form of control and separation. And
yeah,
so eventually, to then care for ourselves, we really will still have to operate in a new way that focuses on like our inner abundance that's already there. And like if we really are these divine beings, how do we treat ourselves? What
yep,
kind of food do we eat? What and so forth. So
yeah. And I think that goes back to, like, the gift economy, is if money wasn't a thing and you did live in a village, then you could really dive into, like, what you're interested in. Like, maybe someone's really interested in gardening and farming, someone's interested in, like, herbs and apothecaries and you know what I mean? And then it's like you have all the tools and resources to rely on each other and give
yeah,
yeah, and that's definitely where I see it going.
there's some dude like weed eating in the background. Can you hear it?
No?
Mhm.
Oh, okay, good. Well, and I think maybe, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, Max, but I also want to throw in like one last point of this is where we're moving towards where the future currency is authenticity, right? Like if we live in an economy where the value is me, like I'm the value that's sort of being traded to contribute, the greatest value I can provide is going to be what's unique to me, which means is what's authentic, which means that if I've been living a life according to what I think others think I should be doing, I'm out of alignment with my authentic self, which means I'm out of alignment with the value I can contribute. And that's
Mhm.
why it's going to come back to, well, who are you? It's like the ultimate question, like, who am I?
Yeah,
And once I can discover more of who I am and my value there inherently, then I can contribute that. And that becomes like the currency. And that's where in the future, Gene Keys talks about like 100% money will be obsolete because
yeah,
it's a form of fear. It's a form, I shouldn't say that. It's neutral, but it's been used as a currency in exchange of fear. In the past, hundreds of years ago, we used sticks and rocks for
mhm.
money. Now we use a paper bill, a fiat, and then it'll become digital, and then past digital, it'll become something like it's
Yeah,
always going to
always changing.
transform. And eventually, I think it'll transform into human beings being the currency of
Yeah,
money. And so the question is, yeah, who am I? And from that state, what do I contribute? If money weren't a thing. And again, I think that's a question that is really hard for most people to answer because we've never been given the chance to put all the noise aside and slow down and just be like, yeah, who am I? You know, like if I'm not programmed to be like, I am Mormon and I am this, and it's like if you don't have that, truly, what are you?
Yeah.
So, thoughts, Max?
Yeah, no, I mean that's a tough question for a lot of people. And yeah, I feel like we've kind of gone the wrong way throughout evolution, in some ways. But I mean, there are still people in different countries and villages and tribes that are living kind of the life you're describing of just like you as currency. Like, what are your skills? What do you like to do? Is kind of what I think of. It's like what actually do you enjoy doing that people need, kind of thing. Like, yeah, do you like growing food? You're a gardener. Like, people, you're needed, right? Do you like building houses? Do you like working on whatever, you know? Um, do you like sitting on your computer and doing a tech job? Like, those are kind of going away. So it's like, what are your actual physical skills? And how do you contribute to society? Um, yeah, it's just like unlearning everything that you're kind of being taught. Because if you're like that single mother who's raising 3 kids, like her kids see that she is struggling to work really hard to provide for this family, and like her kids are that's what they know now. Like, and that's really hard to unlearn. Um, and I think that's kind of the case for a lot of people. It's like, oh, my mom and dad, these are their titles. This is what they do, and this is how they make money. It's like,
It's
yeah,
literally the
but
first thing people ask when you meet them.
yeah,
Oh, what do you do?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's like all that matters in society. What do you do?
yeah,
Yeah. It's yeah. There yeah. Not to go not to go on a tangent, but I saw this clip of this guy, super inspirational guy, and someone came up to him. He must be well known, and they're like, "So, like, what do you do?" And he's like, "I live life. I
Mm-hmm.
enjoy." And the guy's like, "Well, yeah, but what do you do?" And he's like, "I live my life." You
Mm-hmm.
know, we're
yeah,
constantly looking for that label to put people in a box, and I think well said, Max. Like, it's an unlearning. This whole
yeah,
process is an unlearning.
Yep.
That's why I think financial empowerment is so intriguing because it really doesn't have much to do about money. It's the unlearning of our relationship with all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. But how do you do that?
Stay in
this,
Kaha Circle and you'll find out.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
um, my laptop's about to die. I
I know,
forgot
like
my
it's really lagging.
Yeah, it's getting really laggy. So, I think this was a solid. Um,
Yeah.
I think this was a solid call, and we'll put a pin in that for the next one of the question that Max just said, which is like, yeah, how do you do that? How do you begin the unlearning?
Yeah.
yeah. And how do you like describe how this life we want to live is done? Like, how do we get there? You know? And we kind of have to do it quickly because like I said, like all those kids, like the next generation is learning from you, right? So if you're doing,
I mean,
you're busting balls to
yeah.
work really hard and make money, like that's what they're gonna do. That's what they're gonna try to do.
Yeah. Well,
So
and
how do
I
we break that cycle?
our generation is so powerful because we can see the generations before us and almost like the pattern and how it's like we don't want to continue that and we do see it another way, different options.
Yeah,
And yeah, I think that's what's exciting is that like yes, we are shifting, but I do still think we have time. Like I think if we start now
for
and we
sure.
build, like our new system, we build our village cuz I mean, kids are so resilient, they're so adaptable, so even if they were raised in that, if you shift them and put them in a different environment and, like, they see how things move and change, it's like they yeah, they adapt so much.
Yeah.
So,
And I
I
feel
think
like we're naturally born with that skill, you know, like we're naturally
yeah,
born to do what we're trying to get to,
yeah.
and like somewhere along the way we just like lose it.
We're put in a system that doesn't
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why we have to develop a new system.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, it's been
You
a
got
cool
it.
conversation. It's been my favorite one. I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah. This is great.
Thanks, Max, for being here.
Thank you,
I'm
Max.
glad. Thanks for letting me in. Thanks for allowing me to be
Yeah,
here.
I feel like we just had like some guest on the podcast. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks for
Okay,
tuning in, everybody. Until next time.
until next time.
Until next time.